This we're going to find. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Heart of Iowa Dems forum with District 2 candidates. I'm Kathy Focht. I'm a co-founder of Heart of Iowa Dems, along with Sarah Smith, who's one of the comms members for Heart of Iowa Dems. And we're really glad to have you here tonight. I'm sorry our turnout is small, but we're kind of late in the election cycle for reasons I don't even have to go through. We have Kathy Dolter with us tonight and Clint Tweet Ball. Lindsay James was invited, just so you know that she was invited. We weren't ignoring her. And we have Sarah Smith with us from Powesheik County, and she is going to moderate the discussion tonight. Since there's so few people along, I think we'll do the three questions we got submitted with the registrations, and then we'll just open it up and you can speak right up or raise your hand or put it in the chat room, whatever you feel comfortable with. Take it away, Sarah.
That sounds great. Well, good to see everyone here, and thanks for those that did join this evening. My name is Sarah Smith. I ran for the Iowa House in 2020 and in 2022. I would recommend never running during a pandemic. It was incredibly hard, but it made a lot of great friends, including Kathy. And then through that, just have really tried to think about with Kathy different ways that we can get people engaged and involved in politics, especially all the different creative ways we had to do it during the pandemic. But this is one of those that came out of it as a way to allow access to candidates in ways that we hadn't before in the past. So excited to still have this going on today, and excited that both Kathy and Clint, you guys joined us here tonight to answer some questions that have been submitted. And then, of course, like Kathy said, if anyone would like to answer questions, they can put it in the chat. But before I hand it over to you guys, just a couple more things about myself. I was raised in Grinnell, Iowa. If you would have told me I'd be back here as an adult, I would have laughed at you. So I went to college at Luther College and then got a job in Chicago, and realized when I was pregnant with my second child that I was looking for small town a small town with a private liberal arts college in Chicago. And it was actually my husband who said, you're looking for Grinnell. Let's just move back. So 20 years ago, we moved back and we have raised our two kiddos. Last weekend, I got to watch my son walk across the stage at Luther College to get his degree in management. And then I have a daughter who is a first year at St. Olaf in Northfield, Minnesota. I've worked at Grinnell College for the last 10 years and really engaged with the community. My most recent campaign, I was unopposed for the at-large seat at the Grinnell City Council, and I'm your mayor pro tem here in Grinnell as well. So that's just a little bit about me, but excited again, like I said, to Kathy and Clint, to have you both here today. I'm going to pass it over to you, Kathy, and then to you, Clint, to introduce yourselves, talk a little bit about why you're running for office, and then we'll get into the questions. So, Kathy, go
Okay,
ahead.
I'll keep it to three minutes. We'll see if I can do it. So I'm Kathy Dolter. I'm an American, an Iowan, a veteran, a nurse, an educator, a public servant, a non-politician, real person. I'm running for Congress because I'm a nurse and I just can't stand by and watch people suffer, and I need to do something. I need to do something about it. So people of Iowa are suffering from the big bad bill, the Trump tariff taxes, the cuts to federal programs, and now Trump's war of choice in Iran. I'm also running for Congress because when I was 21 years old, I took an oath to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States of America against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And I never thought that the biggest threats to our Constitution would be a, a corrupt president who exceeds his constitutional powers on a daily basis and a spineless Congress who doesn't exert any of its constitutional powers to check and balance him. I always say I have an ABC action plan. I'll give the short version. So to try to fix things. So I think we all need to be alive and healthy. So we all need health care. And the first thing I do is I think we need to shore up Medicare, Medicaid, the Affordable Care Act, the VA healthcare system on our journey to universal health care. So I'm universal health care. B, bucks. We all need sufficient bucks to buy food, shelter, and electricity for ourselves and our families. And so I say the first thing is to ensure a living income for workers and our seniors. So our work to increase the federal minimum wage for our workers and shore up Social Security for our seniors. And then C, constitutional freedoms. I believe we all need to be free to live, love, laugh, speak, assemble, and have due process. Because if we are alive and have bucks but are not free, then what is the point? So I believe we need a No King's Amendment to the Constitution. We need to start that process to prevent abuse of presidential pardons, executive orders, declarations of emergency, and declarations of war. Because I don't want any president to be a king in America, and especially those presidential pardons that allow all this corruption and lawlessness. I say that I am a retired Lieutenant Colonel PhD Army nurse with a proven track record of getting in, getting things done, getting out, and moving on in multiple large and small organizations, from the VA and the Department of Defense and the Army Medical Department to two private colleges to community college, a large community college, Kirkwood. I've started from scratch the VA DoD Evidence-Based Clinical Practice Guideline Project to improve quality of care for service members and veterans. I started two nursing programs in the state of Iowa, and I led Kirkwood Community College be the top nursing program in the state. I'm also a public servant. I served on the Iowa Board of Nursing. I've served on the Findlay Hospital Board of Directors, and I'm currently chair of the Dubuque County Board of Health. So I know the military, I know healthcare, and I know education. I have passionately advocated for my entire career for for patients, for service members, for veterans, for nurses, for nursing faculty, for nursing students, and the public. And I would passionately advocate for all the constituents of Iowa's second congressional district. So I always say, my final thing is I always say, no matter what happens, let's turn Iowa blue, flip that house, take back Congress, stop the Republican billionaire boys club machine, and make America America again. Thank you. And thanks so much for having me and for arranging this, Sarah and Kathy.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Fantastic. Clint, let's hear from you.
Yeah, it's great to be here, everyone. Thanks for the work of putting this on, Kathy and Sarah. So a little about me. I'm a small town Iowa boy. My dad was a Methodist pastor in small town Iowa. My grandfather was a Methodist pastor. I moved around, was born over on the west side of the state and then moved to the east side, eventually graduated from Lincoln and Des Moines. But I learned in those small towns the goodness of people, the idea that we can all come together and help our neighbors, that we can rally around the common good and do things that improve our state and our neighborhoods, our region. And so after serving a couple of churches, I decided to start an organization in Cedar Rapids called Matthew 25 about 20 years ago. And we quickly grew when in 2008 there was a flood, and it felt like the federal government and other government entities were totally letting us down. People were frustrated at their wits' end. We stepped in, raised about $7 million, brought in thousands of volunteers, rebuilt hundreds of homes, helped to move people back. And from there, we've got about the business of revitalizing neighborhoods. Over the years, we grew from 2 employees to more than 40. We started the state's first urban farm, a grocery store, a cafe that was the state's only pay it forward cafe, a tool library, did a lot of educational programming, focused on food, job creation for youth so that they could have their first job. And, when Trump came into power, it just felt like so much of our work was being totally undercut. The people that could least afford it were having things like Medicaid, SNAP benefits, other things taken away from them. We've watched 10 years of a race towards the bottom in Iowa with schools declining, healthcare declining, all of that. And we're in the middle of a disaster. Trump has started a dumpster fire for our federal government. And I feel like we need people that can step in, that have the experience of pulling people together, moving communities forward, and helping us to rebuild after this disaster. And so that's what compelled me to step in and run, because I believe still that we can do really amazing things together when we get beyond the ripping each other apart, scapegoating certain communities, and talk about how do we move forward for the common good. So again, appreciate being here. And, Sarah, I just happened to be in Grinnell this morning at Sam's Coffee Shop for a little gathering there. And Sam, the mayor, has endorsed me. I don't know if you knew that, but
No.
it's a great little community. So love being.
Well, I actually knew you were there because I think, sorry, this is small town living, but I think someone in your campaign grabbed maybe your spouse's coat from my
Oh,
office today. So small town, I knew you.
ah,
Yeah, that came. Someone from your campaign came to my office, grabbed a coat, and then yeah, I was glad to hear that you were in town. So thank
I
you,
did
thank
not
you.
realize that was your office. It is a
Yes,
small world.
yes, it is a small world, is right. So, well, that's great. Thank you, and I'm glad you were in Grinnell today. It is a great place, Saints Rest, and so yeah, if you're in town, you should check it out. So we talked about let's start with some of the questions that were submitted. You talked a lot about both of you. I mean, I think there's some answers to this, but if you wanted to expand a little bit more, I mean, you both acknowledged the question is, how can we ever get through this mess? You both acknowledged as you're introducing yourselves, that things aren't great right now. That there is definitely a mess at the federal government. So the first question, yeah, how can we ever get through this mess? And at the same time, this person also asked, and where would you start if it was up to you? So, Kathy, since you introduced yourself first, I'm actually going to toss it back over. I'm trying to make sure we go back and forth. So, Clint, if you don't mind, I'll have you start this one first. Clint, where would you start if it was up to you, with where we're at right now with federal government?
Yeah, when I talk to voters out there, the number one thing that I hear about is affordability, right? Around things like those big sections of our budgets, whether it's food, housing, groceries, healthcare. Those are the things that people are really concerned have gotten totally out of control. And this current administration has just, instead of focusing in on them, has created wars, is driving up costs of things like diesel and fertilizer and gas. And I think the place we have to start is with affordability, and ending the war over in Iran, getting the Strait of Hormuz back open, lowering gas prices, and then starting to think about things like how do we restore the tax credits for the ACA so that more people have access to insurance. And like Kathy said, moving towards universal healthcare options for people. I think that's really, really critical. And then, as I said, I've had a lot of experience with groceries and with the food chain and with housing. We need to be able to build 10 million units of housing to get out of this shortage we're in. And that will require the federal government to look and say, how do we scale that up? And I think we need to break up some of these big ag corporations that are making lots of money off of the amazing Iowa soil and the hard work of farmers, and then taking it out of state and leaving us with a lot of the water quality issues and other problems. We need to figure out how to get back to focusing on more diversified farms and smaller family farms.
That's awesome. Fantastic. Thank you, Clint. Thank you so much. Kathy, over to you. First of all, I want to acknowledge your nod about everything you've done for nursing in the state of Iowa. Thank you, thank you. I have several aunts who are nurses. One in particular was a director of public health in Butler County for a long time, and so I have a definite soft spot in my heart for nurses. But I mean, my guess. I have a feeling I say that because I have a feeling that maybe I know where you might start if it was up to you.
Yeah.
But I just want to throw that out. Thank you for for everything you've given to nursing, especially at Kirkwood and to that program. But yeah, you acknowledged the mess as well as
Yeah.
Clint did. So where would you start if it was up to
And
you?
I think that, so I'd start with healthcare, but the healthcare is the number one affordability issue that
Yeah.
Americans recognize is healthcare, right? They can't afford it. Um, so I always say that the first thing I would do is repeal the big bad bill, with its cuts to Medicaid and SNAP that are hurting the working families, the poor, the elderly, and nursing homes. Medicaid is the number one funder for nursing homes, and then our rural and urban healthcare systems. And then we know that we pay 2 to 3 times more than any other country per person than any other country on earth, developed country on earth, and we have the worst outcomes. So there's this myth that we would have a terrible problem if we went to universal health care. But actually, we have the worst outcomes, highest infant mortality, highest maternal mortality, shortest length of life for men, shortest length of life for women, and then we have 20, soon to be 40 million people uninsured. And all those other countries, they're all insured. We're the only country with medical bankruptcy. We have the shortest length of life in the green zone, which is when we're healthy and able to do everything and not on any meds. We got the longest time in the yellow zone, the chronic disease zone in our country because we don't prevent things. So yeah, but another thing is the affordability is so that's the number one affordability issue. But then again, we need to the bucks, B bucks. We need to, my second thing of the ABC, and the living income, right, for workers and seniors. But then stop the Trump tariff taxes, right, which have hurt Iowa farmers, families, and businesses, right, destroyed farmer markets, foreign markets, and increased inflation probably to 17 to $2,000 per family in America, right? And that's hurt the businesses. I think the next thing, defund Trump's war of choice in Iran, right, which has further hurt our farmers, increasing fertilizer costs and fuel costs. But then our gas, everyone's gas prices, and then it's going to be inflationary. And then when everybody runs out of the reserves, then I'm really afraid to see what's going to happen. I think the next thing is stop the cuts to wind and solar, right? Stop the cuts to wind and solar, because when have an increased demand, you need to increase supply, or the electric bills are going to skyrocket, and they're already skyrocketing from the AI data center building. And then I think we need to look at worker rights, ensuring worker rights, protecting worker pensions, healthcare, and jobs. The biggest problem with jobs is everybody's sticking their head in the sand about the AI job tsunami, the job loss that's coming, tsunami that's coming our way. All the college students are booing anybody mentioning AI in every college graduation speech. It's already hurting their prospects. And then we need to look at, as Clint said, housing policies to make sure that the American dream of home ownership is available to first-time home buyers so that they can build wealth. And then we need the childcare policies so that working families can afford to work. Right now, the monthly childcare costs are equal to or exceeding their monthly mortgage payments. So businesses need workers, families need to work. So let's figure something out on that. And if Oklahoma and I think it's Oklahoma and Georgia have universal pre-K, why can't the rest of us? Those are pretty red darn states, right? And they've got it. So what the heck are we doing? We just seem to not be, but we can see what we need to do. But yeah, there's so much to do on healthcare. Um, but on our way to healthcare, we need to, after repealing the big bad bill, we need to restore the ACA subsidies and then increase Medicare and Medicaid the reimbursement rate for providers so that they can actually afford to take patients because oftentimes providers can't afford to take Medicaid or Medicare patients because of the reimbursement rates. Primarily Medicaid is the big one.
Thank you, both of you, for those answers, and for the many different things. I do acknowledge that was a loaded question because there's a lot of things to fix. I appreciate you both giving a lot of different areas that are hurting right now in the United States, and acknowledge those and that you're thinking about that in your campaigns. The next one, you both have danced a little bit around this, but not particularly. We haven't gone really in depth, so let's do it. So the next one, a question came in. What are your plans to reduce greenhouse gas emissions? You've both talked just a little bit about farming you talked a little bit about, but I'm just curious, yeah, for this question, what are your plans? And Kathy, we'll go with you first. What are your plans to reduce greenhouse gas emissions?
I think the first thing is that we got to restore and fully fund the Environmental Protection Agency, which has been really cut. We need to have mandatory enforcement of we have to have strong regulations, mandatory regulations with strong enforcement. And then I believe that we should have percentage of revenue fines because all the big guys it hurts. The fines can hurt the little guy, the little farmer or business, but the big guys farmers and businesses just laugh themselves all the way to the bank because they're so minuscule to them. So I think that that's really important. Because I think it's more than we just got to worry about the entire environment, just not greenhouse gases. I think the next thing we need to do, though, is I think if we can subsidize oil companies to pollute, we should be able to subsidize farmers and businesses to hit our mandatory targets, right? To help them hit the mandatory regulation targets that are set. Because it's all of our environments. So shouldn't we all be pitching in to help them hit the targets? And then obviously, I think the cuts to wind and solar have to be restored so that we can increase the use of renewables. I think other environmental things is I think we need have to look at the two big chemical just in the past 2 days. A big tank in California, right, ready to blow, and people had to be evacuated, and it's horribly toxic substance. And then we've got something I think it just happened. Was it in Oregon? Wood paper mill, and leaking caustic substances, and I think 9 people missing in that. So I believe we need a federal chemical administration similar to the Food and Drug Administration's that would look at all the chemicals. We've got thousands, tens of thousands of chemicals that are stored in big tanks next to waterways, usually, right? That can then pollute and cause human harm, long-term cancer, short-term death, right? Immediate death. Is that we've got to get a handle on all these chemicals. And before we let a chemical be used, I think it should be have to be proven safe and effective, like a drug does from the Food and Drug Administration. It's time to wake up and stop the insanity. You just even some lab in the lab, you have MSDS sheets that you have to read, and it's like, oh my goodness, what am I going to do if somebody gets hurt with this chemical in a chemistry lab, right? So yeah, so I think those are the big things.
Thank you, Kathy. Thank you. Clint, what are your plans to reduce greenhouse gas emissions?
Yeah, so I think we need to acknowledge and help to create a narrative that shows what a horrible place we're in, right? So if you look at my work at Matthew 25, I mentioned the flood of 2008. That was a horrific event, 10 square miles flooded, 1,500 homes that were torn down because of climate change happening, right? And then 2020, the derecho that swept across Iowa and Cedar Rapids took down 65% of our tree canopy. Again, created problems for virtually every homeowner out there. Moved Iowa and parts of Cedar Rapids to a place where people struggle to even get homeowner insurance plans to cover them. And so we're seeing escalating costs on lots of different levels because of the changes in our climate. It's hitting the lowest income people the hardest, but it's hitting everybody hard, and it's driving up costs and again adding to this affordability crisis. So when you combine that with what Kathy mentioned of AI data centers that are popping up everywhere and the demands that they have for electricity, and I think we have to have an all-in approach to say, how do we deal with rising electricity demand without raising carbon emissions, hopefully reducing carbon emissions? Iowa has this incredible opportunity to be a leader on renewable energy and to actually produce more than what we need and sell it out of the state, through solar and wind and other renewables. So I think we need to have the tax credits that really push that into overdrive. And then we need to look at all the ways in which those systems that produce food and other things have gotten to a place where carbon emissions are growing instead of shrinking. When 80% of the food consumed in Iowa is coming from outside the Iowa, think of the carbon emissions that are created by that. So the more we can grow locally and have a local food system that pushes us forward, the better. So, I think most of what Kathy mentioned is also the right approach. This has got to be a place where we look at all systems and how we tackle this as aggressively as possible.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah. Yeah, my uncle actually owned a lumber yard in Cedar Rapids, downtown Cedar Rapids during
Yeah.
that flood. And I went and cleaned as many things as I could so he could put them back on his shelves. But watching from afar, how many people just, their lives, their homes were destroyed, and
Right.
everything was out on the curb. It was eye-opening to me, and I'm glad you brought up that point, because it really work to see if we can, as much as we can, to change our environment,
Yeah.
and into the state. And unfortunately, it is today. But yeah, that was a tough time. But Cedar Rapids has come back, so that's great. Good for them. But let's not have that happen again.
We as a country can come back from this disaster,
Agreed.
right? So, yeah.
Yep, absolutely, absolutely. Um, so the next question is from a Vietnam vet, and I don't know the name of the individuals, but I first and foremost want to thank that person for their service. And I understand, I can understand maybe why they would ask this question. But they really want to know. You've talked a little bit, but even more on your opinion on the Iran war. Was their question? And coming, from their perspective as a vet, obviously some concern about it, but just wanting to know what your opinion is on the war.
Yeah, it's a tragic that this administration thinks strategically, thinks about long-term implications, and they just kind of it's like Trump wakes up and decides, okay, we're going to use our military might to go in and make this happen. And now we see, this war that was going to be, oh, just a little foray that would last a few weeks. We have no idea how we're going to get out of it. It's cost 4 Iowans their lives. It's injured countless others. It's driving up prices, like I mentioned. It's leading to instability in that entire region. It is costing us $1 billion a day at a time where the president says, oh, we can't afford childcare, we can't afford health care because we have these other prices. I mean, I think almost every measure that you can take of this, it's been a failure. And when the president talks about the fact that, we just couldn't let Iran go forward the way they were, I mean, I think we were all in agreement that something needed to be done, that Iran is a bad actor, that they've been doing horrible things for a long time. But again, we seem to have no strategy on how to help handle it. And now it's like always the most vulnerable Americans that pay the ultimate price. And I think voters are going to reward this administration by voting a whole lot of people out of office this fall and saying it's time for our country to move in a different direction.
Thank you, Clint. Yeah, great point. Thank you. Kathy.
Yeah, I say that the Iran war is ethically and morally, economically and strategically the wrong thing to do. So let's go with ethically and morally. We've already lost 2 Iowa soldiers, service members. We had Sergeant Declan Cody, 20 years old, attending Drake University, and we had a family man, Major Jeffrey O'Brien, who died also in the same strike. There are 13 total Americans who've died that we are aware of, right? And there's hundreds, we don't know the exact number, who've been injured, and we do not know how badly. And sometimes those are concussions and traumatic amputations, we don't know that, and that have a long impact on their lives. We've killed, I think, over 150 Iranian school children because of a casualty of war, a mistake. We have killed thousands of Iranians. We've killed people in other countries. And Israel has killed people in Lebanon in the name of this war also. So I think morally and ethically, it's wrong. I think economically, we spent 29 billion and counting. I think there's a $200 billion request for supplemental funding for the Department of Defense to fund this war for the rest of this year. And then I think there's a 1.5, the biggest request, Department of Defense request in history, $1.5 trillion DoD FY27 budget request that is totally out of control. We need to look at more. We're using, 100,000, $500,000 weapon systems, and they're getting knocked out by $20,000 drones, if not less expensive drones. So we've got to do something about that. But I think the biggest thing, we need to stop this unjust war. So defund the war, number one. Then we need to prevent wars by using and I just want to point out that our own intelligence department said that there was no movement by Iranians to build a nuclear weapon. There's a lot of bad guys in this world. We can't go after every bad guy, but we're forgetting our two biggest foes. I forgot to mention strategically. Strategically, the two biggest foes we have, potential threats, are Russia and China. And we should never forget that. And we expended a lot of our strategic weaponry, our weaponry arsenal, to bomb to oblivion a fourth-rate military power. So we have really messed up. So now if Russia makes a move, China makes a move, we are in a terrible spot. So I think we need to defund the war. We need to prevent wars by fully funding and restoring our U.S. State Department. Um, by the way, we can't have people negotiating wars who are real estate agents, right? Those that got totally unqualified people negotiating peace. It's just amazing to me that this is even, it just seems like a joke to me. And then we need to shore up our NATO and other alliances. I believe that the NATO alliance did the right thing in staying out of this thing. No one wants to get into this mess because it was a terrible, awful decision from many aspects. And then I think we need to the next thing defense wise we need to do is say no to that $1.5 trillion budget. There's more cost effective and innovative ways, and it's going to decimate programs, all the programs that help civilians in America. When you look at Eisenhower talked about the military industrial complex, and this is just this $1.5 trillion budget feeds right into that. And he did a if he knew war, right? Because he was a Supreme Allied Commander, right, in Europe. And he also said that the biggest thing that we need to do, we need to always remember that I think he gave a speech about give peace a chance, and it's about how we could spend money on a weapon system, or we could spend money on Americans. And we need to stop spending it on weapon systems or get much more cost-effective, innovative ways to do that, because I believe in a strong defense. But the biggest thing I'm worried about is that we've got an out-of-control Secretary of Defense and President who are violating the Geneva Conventions and the international laws of war. They are bombing fishermen in the fishing boats in the Caribbean and Eastern Pacific. They are bombing other countries. They are kidnapping and murdering other countries' leaders, and they are starting wars. And Congress is supposed to use its oversight to stop that, budgetary oversight, to stop that. And it has the power, right? Budget power, oversight power, and it has the power to declare war. And it's insane to me that we have lost our reputation as the good guy in the world. And you can't get your reputation back very easily. And so we are losing allies, and we are going to be in a world of hurt in the real upcoming potential threats from the two big guys that we really need to worry about, which is Russia and China. So there you go. That's me on defense.
No, all three of those questions were really, really big questions. So I appreciate both of your answers. Thank you. Thank you very much. And your complete answers too. I appreciate that. All right, let's give you a couple of shorter, softer, like some softballs, not totally, but let's give you some options for some shorter questions. This one was one that I was thinking about just to get to know you both a little bit more. I was just curious, what are your favorite places to spend time in Iowa? What are your favorite places to spend time in Iowa? Kathy, what do you?
Well, I was in the military, right? So I served
Yeah.
in San Antonio twice and Fort Walter Reed in DC twice. And I was stationed in California when the Army paid for my PhD program, right? And then I was over in Europe. My favorite place to be is Dubuque, Iowa, because this is where my family was from. This is where I grew up after we moved back here when I was in eighth grade. Parents temporarily moved to Chicago, but I love Dubuque and I love the hills, and it looks just like Germany. So I know I enjoyed Germany too because it looks just like Germany. So yeah, no, it's Dubuque, and I would say I grew up right across from the Ham House on Shiras in Dubuque, Iowa. And we climbed all over the cliffs and we hung out in Eagle Point Park. So Tri-State View, I mean, in the fall, it's all the seasons are so neat too. So Dubuque, Iowa.
Fantastic.
But I'm saying Winneshiek and Decorah are beautiful. Luther College, where
Yes.
was it your son who just
Son,
graduated?
yes,
Yeah.
son, yes.
We just had a debate up there, Clint, Lindsay, and I,
Oh,
and that's a beautiful campus. So I think
yes.
Winneshiek, Allen McKee. I was up in McGregor last night. They give Dubuque a run for their money. So.
That's great. I love it. Clint, what's your
Yeah,
favorite place to spend time in Iowa
so
in?
many awesome places in Iowa, right? I think
Yeah,
Iowa is
so true.
so underrated by the rest of the country. People have no idea how beautiful this state is. So my family has a small 50-acre farm down in southern Iowa, near Bloomfield, Ottumwa area, and I have a little cabin there, that I love to go and stay in. That sits right next to a tiny pond where you can hear all of nature wake you up in the morning. So that's my very, very favorite place. And then we always took our kids like camping up along the Mississippi and in Decorah. Decorah has a little campground right outside town where you can ride your bikes in on the bike trail and go to all the good places to eat and everything. So that was one of our favorites. But yeah, between that and the Mount Effigy Mounds and Yellow River Forest. I mean, this is one of the most beautiful parts of the world, I feel like. So, yeah.
I think so too, Clint. I think it's very, but maybe that's what it's okay. It's our own little treasure and secret. Although I'd love more people to know about it. Clint, we'll probably have to talk later. My family's all from Pulaski, Iowa, which is near
Oh,
Bloomfield, and
yeah.
anyway, and Ottumwa. So probably, yeah, cousins of some sort at some part of
Yeah,
the way. So yes,
my brother married a Pulaski woman.
oh
So
boy.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. That's great. That's great. My dad will love to hear that. So anyway, but I do agree with you and Kathy both. I think the Driftless area up in Northeast Iowa is absolutely beautiful. So if anyone here hasn't been, you should go. It's gorgeous. Okay, so the next thing I was thinking about, you talked a lot about campaigning, and I know you've been in a lot of different places. And I'm wondering the most interesting thing that you have learned while campaigning about others and then about yourself. The most interesting thing that you have learned while campaigning about others and about yourself. Clint, I think it's your turn. Is that right? Sorry if I haven't remembered that correctly.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
wow, that's the richness of being out on the campaign trail,
Yeah,
right?
so
Like you
true.
get this
Yes.
gift of going out and re-falling in love with all these places and hearing people's stories and
Right.
you know, what's inspiring to me and what I've come across a lot is small town entrepreneurs that are just like have this dream and they're pushing it forward, even in places where they see other businesses failing and struggling. They're like intent to keep their main streets growing. I think about somebody up in Grundy Center that started a cidery and has some of the most delicious drinks out there. And it's become kind of this gathering place for adults when the kids are like off at a movie. A block away, all the adults go in there and they have drinks and they do just fun activities. I think about a place up in Northeast Iowa that's the Steel Cow Gallery where they have pictures of cows kind of hung all over and they ship them all across the country. So those folks and their creativity is a huge part of it. And then what was the second part of the question?
And then about yourself. What have
Oh,
you
about
found
myself.
most interesting thing about yourself while campaigning?
Yeah. So I think that campaigning is like any other thing where you get yourself in shape a little bit, right? Like I was exhausted at first, just with all the events and the volume of listening and all of that. But as I've done more of it, it's like those muscles start to build up, and I thoroughly enjoy that part of it. And I think when I started, I also started with this sense of like ridiculous optimism, right? And I thought in this moment that feels so dark for so many that maybe people would say, "Ah, that's ridiculous. We don't need optimism. We just need people to be angry and fight back. And I get it, that's part of it. But I think people, even young adults that are really angry, have said, I love your sense of optimism and that you're pointing towards a place of hope and possibility because we need that. So that's been good.
Fantastic. Kathy, how about you? Most interesting thing you've learned while campaigning about yourself and about others, or vice versa, wherever you want to start.
Yeah, I'll do the others first. I think I always have asked people, I used to have a board that would have all the different areas of topics and I had post-its and I'd ask people to put their top three issues on the post-it and they could put it in any category they wanted, wherever they thought it went. And the top ones when I started were threats to democracy, the environment, healthcare, right? Um, and then but when now it's just when you ask them, it's just like everything's driving me crazy. I can't even come up with one, like they can't come up with one thing. But I think the thing is that how similar we all are. I mean, it's amazing that that was true for a lot of places I went, except for the one where I was at we had an Iowa Nurses Association conference, and that was a group of younger work, more working, because most of the time, when we're out at the Iowa, they're older and they're white, right? That's one thing that I'm worried about is that we don't have enough diversity of the people in attendance at a lot of these events. Lynn County has a little bit more diverse crowd, but Dubuque, I mean, it's just we just aren't as diverse as we should be. But I think what's interesting is everybody's got the same worries, but what they're most worried about is what they're leaving their kids and their grandkids, right? And I think that would be for anybody in America, whether you're a Democrat, Republican, or independent. But everybody, they're worried about what sort of country or they're leaving their or state they're leaving their kids and their grandkids. So I think that's really interesting. How very alike we all are, no matter what part of the state we're from, what color we are. That's what how old we are, that's what they're worried about. And the young people are worried about, well, what are you handing off to us? What are you guys handing off to us here, right? And then I think the most interesting thing, well, I love people. I always loved people, but I used to be super, super shy, right? But then I joined the army, and that all went out the window. But what I really enjoy and interesting is I just love talking with people and learning about what their issues and concerns are. But that's kind of like you start out with that in nursing all the time. Oh, how are you doing, right? And what's your top issue? Like, and what's hurting, right? And it's like what's hurting psychologically. So I just think it's just I love giving speeches and I love being out with people. So that's what I find most interesting. So about me,
That's
but
awesome.
but I kind of knew that because before when I was super shy, like no speeches, like stay away from big crowds. But yeah, after the army, that went away, and the army helps you get rid of that, especially as you move up in rank. You got to do a lot more stuff. But yeah. Yeah.
That's great. That's
And,
great.
and we've met some really nice candidates too. I think all the candidates we've met are I mean, they're so passionate. Like Clint, they're also passionate about what they're doing and have a good heart, right?
That's
So
awesome.
and so we just need to turn it blue, no matter who wins, right? No matter who
That
wins, we
sounds
got to turn
great.
it blue.
And I heard both of you talk about and turn it positive too. I'm so tired of the negativity and the hate that we continue to see that is shown to others. So that's good to hear. Lots of good stuff that's happening out there on the campaign and also things that you've learned about yourself too. So seeing the time, I
Sarah,
have one more
Sarah,
question.
there
Yeah,
is a
Seth?
question. There
Oh,
is a
there
question,
is. Oh,
Chaplain.
sorry. I see it. Oh, yep.
Chaplain.
Sorry about that. Yep. Okay. So we do have okay, so let's go for this question. Um, thank you, Donna, for putting that in there. What do you think could be done to solve the lack of food in America? Kathy, that's to you first.
Yeah, and I think that's the first thing is I don't know from like I think we grow enough stuff, but is it the right stuff and is it the right place, right? But I think the big thing, first of all, is we need to have, there's so many poor who cannot afford. So I think that's where we come in with the living income, increasing that minimum wage, $17 an hour, making sure our seniors, I see seniors who are still working, right? Because and they have bad teeth and they've got they're limping and they can't pay for the dental care or the medical care because they can't afford co-pays and the providers won't take Medicaid for dental. So, but for food, we've got to repeal that big bed bill and get the SNAP back, right? And so living income for both workers and seniors, SNAP benefits, restore those, but and increase the Social Security benefit for our elders because that Social Security benefit is not kept pace. And then I think we've got to not have food deserts. We've got food deserts, as Clint identified, in Iowa, right? And where people, the only place to go shopping is a case for food is a Casey's or a Quick Star or Quick Stop, right? And that's not healthy food. And so I always say that if we can subsidize oil companies again and other companies, like Elon Musk's company has been subsidized, right? So why can't we subsidize grocery stores in our rural communities so that people can have access to quality food so they can maintain their health, right? If you don't have proper nutrition, you don't have proper health. And so there's so many things we can do. And then I think Chris Jones talks about that maybe we shouldn't have just this one, we have soybeans and corn, right? Like, what about how can we help subsidize farmers to get off of those crops and move toward more diverse crops? I remember when I used to drive back and forth to Iowa City when I was in college, what we would see is diverse farms. They had pigs and cows and they grew all sorts of things, right? And now it's all corn, it's all soybeans, right? So how do we get off these this dual crop and try being more diverse? But how do you help farmers do that? You're not going to jump off what you know unless there's a raft to jump onto, right? That can help keep because they got to make money too. So that's my thoughts. So thanks so much for the opportunity, Donna.
Clint, what do you think can be done to solve the lack of food in America?
Yeah, so like I said before, this is an area that I've spent a lot of time thinking about and working in, right? And what we see in our food system is the same thing that we're seeing everywhere in our political system, which is we have a system right now that is designed to create wealth for the people at the top, to move as many resources towards them as possible, while leaving people that are struggling way behind. It's not just that food is not available, it's also that the food that is available to low-income people is incredibly unhealthy. If you look at the correlation between free and reduced lunches and the obesity rates, it's ridiculously high. And then if you start looking further at like the attendance rates, the health concerns that are caused by all of that as kids grow up, all of it limits a kid from reaching their God-given potential. And so I think we have to look at it systemically, but we also need to look at some basic things. Number one, restore the SNAP benefits that Kathy talked about. Number two, we need a farm bill that works for people to help make them healthy, that works for reducing the size of farms, that works to break up huge agribusiness and get farming back to focusing on people. And then we also need to focus on innovative systems that help to get food into places where it's not reaching right now, whether that's grocery stores, Kathy mentioned, or the cafes like we run, teaching people about home gardening and canning and some of those skills that we've kind of lost so that people can grow their own healthy food. I think there's a multitude of things that we have done. And unfortunately, this administration is going the exact opposite direction, with the exception of a few of the MAHA things that are kind of moving us in a decent direction.
Yeah, so true. Okay. Well, I do still, unless if anyone wants to raise your hand or put something in the chat, I do have one last question. Okay. I'm going to go for it, given the time. So we talked a lot about how much you have been talking with people, and I'm wondering if you could let us know what you think are the three most important needs of voters in District 2. The three most important needs of voters in this district that you're running for, of all of the things that you've heard. And Clint, I'll let you go first of those, just three of the things people are needing the most or need
Yeah,
you to
so
work on the most. Yeah.
like I said, and like Kathy has said, it's a dumpster fire. People are just upset about everything. So I would put the top three in this order. Number one, corruption and the total use of the government as Trump's own personal ATM machine for he and his wealthy friends. I think it leads to all kinds of a downward spiral. Number two would be affordability of all the things that we've mentioned, including healthcare and water quality and all of that. And number three, I think, would be education. When I was growing up, it was like we shipped ITBS score tests off all over the country. People were super proud of our educational system. Now you have places struggling to even keep their school districts going. We have people fleeing the system. We're allowing public dollars to go outside of the public school system. We really, really need to have a vision for how to get back to having the number one or number two schools in the US, and we're a long, long ways from it.
Thank you, Clint. Kathy, what do you
I'm going to
think?
stick
Three
with
most important
my
needs.
ABCs,
Okay.
alive
Yep.
and
Just,
healthy.
yep.
So,
Okay.
right. So that means that we've got to have health care and affordable health care at that. And we need to be healthy, which is we need to look at the cancers, right? And we need to get Robert F. Kennedy out of there, Jr., who is making America sick again with his vaccine disinformation and his cuts to the federal research programs that will that will look at cancer rates and study cancer and causes. And then I think that affordability, B-Bucks, is all those things that I talked about already to make sure that we can live. We have to have some, we have to, I always think it's Maslow's pyramid. We got to have our basic needs, right? And then we can worry about stuff. But then then from what people said to me, have always said to me, and is that constitutional freedoms was what they were, threats to democracy was their top thing. Every place I went with that was where all the things were. And that includes, that protecting voter rights, right? To make it easier for people to vote instead of like the SAVE Act and all the threats to voting. People died for the right to vote. We need, so it needs to make it easier. Other countries make it a national holiday on election day. And then we need to stop gerrymandering and gerrymandering more so that every vote counts everywhere. And then number three, that campaign finance reform so that our Congress people they listen to the voters, not to their corporations and billionaires, which is what's happening right now. There is an election industrial complex, and it wants us. They make more money the more we hate each other, the more money we got to raise to get those bad guys ever to hold office, right? So they make money off of that. But then I do think that then fighting that corruption, but that's that No King's Amendment, because the biggest corruption comes from the presidential pardons. The Supreme Court's given the president immunity from every act that he does as a president, but he wouldn't be able to get anybody else to play along with him if there wasn't a presidential pardon. Because so there you go. So get rid of the presidential pardons, get rid of all those dang executive orders. So because he's taking over every congressional power in Article 1, by those executive orders. Nobody should be doing executive orders. Congress passes a law, the president executes them, and that's it. And then I think these declarations of emergency and declarations of war, I'm worried about, are we actually going to have an election, a fair election? Because I'm worried that there's going to be voter intimidation, the ICE, which needs to be back at the border, defunded to pre-2024 levels. And we need to get our military back to their bases fighting for external threats and not in our cities. potentially to be used to intimidate voters. So, so that's what I think. ABC, and that's why it's kind of like triage, air breathing circulation. It's alive and healthy, B bucks, and C constitutional freedoms. So,
Thank you,
thanks so
Kathy.
much for the opportunity.
Absolutely. Clint, Kathy, thank you so much for being here tonight, for your answers, for your time, and honestly, just the time spent listening to all of us in this district. It's refreshing to hear from both of you, and to know that you're definitely listening to us, and I just sincerely appreciate that. So, Kathy, with that, I'll toss it over to you. Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Clint. But
I'm just
Kathy,
going to
yeah.
say again, thanks to all of you, including Sarah, for being on tonight, moderating the call. Couple things. Don't forget to vote in the primaries. You still have time. You could go to your auditor's office in your county. Those hours are going to vary by county, so if you don't know them, call them or look them up on the web, on the website for the auditor in your county. Also, your county should be open for voting this Saturday at the auditor's office. I don't know what those hours are, but I'm pretty sure they have to be open by law on Saturday. So you want to, if you can vote on Saturday, and that works better for you. And then, of course, the election is next Tuesday, in which case you have to vote at your precinct polling place. If any of you have an absentee ballot hanging out that you have not mailed in yet, please don't mail it. No guarantee it'll get there in time. You need to hand deliver it to the auditor's office in your county. It has to be there by 4:30. I think it's 4:30 on Tuesday. If you change your mind and want to go to the polls, take your ballot with you. That is your ballot. You would hand it in, they would destroy it and let you vote at the polls. So that's another way to vote too, if you already have an absentee ballot. Can't think of anything else with voting. Point of privilege here. Mary Weaver, who is on this call, and I belong to a group called Grassroots Iowa Network. We have an upcoming full day event for grassroots groups, um, and probably county chairs, stuff like that, in Newton, Iowa on June 6th. And a lot of great people are going to be there. We would welcome you. I will send you guys all info on it. If you're not interested, don't read it or delete it. And that same group will have Laura Bellin from Bleeding Heartland on next Wednesday night on a Zoom call. She's going to give us her first take on the primaries. I don't know if you all read Laura Bellin or not, but she's, really a pretty well-known journalist in the state.
Kathy,
And yeah,
I think it's Thursday night, the 4th.
I'm sorry, Thursday night, the 4th on the Laura Bellin. What did I say? Wednesday?
Wait, Wednesday. That's okay.
Which is, I think I had my Heart of Iowa thing in. There will not be a Heart of Iowa thing next Wednesday. I don't think I have time to put that together, but there will be one soon, and you're all will be on that list too. But I'll send you stuff on the Laura Bellin event and the full live event on the 6th of June. If you'd like to join us, we would welcome you. That's it for tonight. And don't forget to vote. Talk to you soon.